Before I begin today's video, I would like to leave some thoughts at the beginning here for people to reflect over and some mindset tips, I guess, that I want people to kind of have going into this. Furthermore, I would like to leave my personal reflections as well as some context behind the making of this video and where you can find my sources and the sort of video script itself. I think empathy is such a unique part of the human experience. This ability that 99% of us have to relate to others without actually having experienced the effects of their lives or what has affected their lives ourselves. It is something that denotes an intelligent living being and something that makes the things that have empathy unique in the universe. Because of that, it is an incredibly important thing to foster. We want our empathetic capabilities to reach their maximum. It is unfortunate that in this day and age, there is a growing acceptable rhetoric that is pushed in our media and on our social media platforms that it is okay to be rude to people. People have always been rude. There have always been those who would rather spew hate and disrespectfulness rather than learn to be compassionate themselves and possibly compassionate towards people that they might not feel comfortable with because of their own insecurities or their own life experiences. Empathy is a tool to get rid of those dividers between us as humans. So the fact that it is becoming acceptable again in mainstream settings to make fun of those with disabilities or make fun of someone else because they do not look like you or are not from the same place as you. It is unacceptable. We as a society should constantly be progressing, and that doesn't just mean financially, technologically, but that means empathetically as well. In the 21st century, we should continue heading towards a progressive path of tolerance for those who believe in things that just because they might not be the norm, do not harm others and is something that helps them. For those who are part of communities that might not be the average populist's community, but in being a part of that community are able to find security for themselves. So, as we go into this video, I implore you to listen to the negative effects that social media might have, but also the positives, and how we can attain and utilize those positives to the best of our ability so that each of us is a proactive, empathetic person in communications with other people on the internet. Pay attention to the hypotheses, listen to the studies, and realize what you can do to be that person and show respect to everybody just as they deserve it. In the description, I will have a link for all of the sources I use to make this video. I will also include a link for the sort of essay script thing I wrote that I based most of this video's content off of. That script itself is also based on the sources that I will have linked below. I would also like to apologize in advance for the lighting and my collar kind of popping up over the course of the video. Hopefully those minuscule details aren't too much of a distraction from the actual content of the video. Please actively listen so that you can enjoy the content of this video to its most possible extent. Thank you. Hello, my name is Macallan Fogarty, and this is my submission for the liberal arts major project. I'd like to shout out Dr. Murdoch. Today we're going to be talking about how social media relates to and changes our empathetic capacities. In the digital age, suffering around the globe is commonplace in the lives of others simply because of handheld computers that most of us carry. Everyone is exposed to the lives of everyone else and is made privy to the details that make up their entirety. The perfections, the mistakes, the memories, the traumas, and every key item that defines an individual are out to be viewed by the world. People absorb these displays differently. Take something that has become more accessible with the creation of social media, like war footage, for example. Some people scoff at the sight, citing their skepticism of the content or the context behind it. Others might be driven to tears and be inclined to donate to a relief fund that's linked in the caption of the video. A select few might see the video and begin to foster or further harbor a prejudice towards a group in the video. and might spread these prejudices online to underground hate groups. With a few of the possible reactions some might have, and many, many more, it is clear to see that social media has the capability to affect people and influence their empathetic capabilities in different ways. As such is the case, it is shocking that there is a debate around the relationship between a contemporary individual's empathy and the usage of social media. A lot of people might fall down the rabbit hole of polarized dichotomous thinking and decide that there either is a relationship or there isn't, or either that people have empathy or they don't. Furthermore, they might not believe that our empathetic views change based upon what we're exposed to on social media. However, the reality is that empathy and how social media might affect it is as complex an issue as any. Most studies done have been susceptible to research bias and only pursued data that portrayed it negatively. One 2024 article titled Shaping Social Media Minds, Scaffolding Empathy in Digitally Mediated Interactions, written by Professor Sven Walter and assistant Carmen Mosner at Osnabrück University, stated, "It might have sounded as if the internet were, per se, bad, producing only narcissists, emotionally blind, and cognitively crippled social phobics." With that being said, some studies do legitimately paint a grim picture of a decline in cognitive empathy and an increase in emotional desensitization. The lack of nonverbal communication is often cited as the primary issue. Without receiving the other stimuli common with nonverbal communication, cognitive empathy, the ability to understand another person's emotional state without necessarily feeling it yourself, was seen reduced in 36% of observed research conducted in one review study. Another review of multiple studies, one that surveyed 942 Dutch adolescents and their time spent on social media compared to their observed differences in empathetic levels, backs this. The findings, while for the most part saw no correlation with changes in affective empathy, otherwise known as emotional empathy, once again found variation in cognitive empathy during one of two timed tests. These results are concerning, with large sample sizes finding a consistent issue with the decline in consistently apt cognitive empathy skills. Another observed negative trend regarding empathy in social media involves how active users often disregard empathy toward one another. One article termed this pattern the virtual disengagement hypothesis. The virtual disengagement hypothesis, a neurophysical framework for reduced empathy on social media, is an article written by Maria Tavares and Ben Rain, and it posits that because users who engage with one another on social media lack cues to effectively ascertain the other's emotional state, they are not biologically permitted to be as empathetic as their brain might allow. The lack of utilization of empathetic parts of the brain leads interactions to be hostile without regret. Another study saw little sensitivity to the acts of cyberbullying, which falls under the umbrella of the aforementioned study's hypothesis. Empathy, however, is a skill, and even with these described negatives, they could easily be assisted with other things such as background knowledge of the individual you're talking to. So context is just as important here as it is in many social facets. The contact hypothesis is another proposed theory that suggests that meaningful contact between two groups can already reduce prejudices, as it provides context to and for one another. The type of social media that one interacts with is also incredibly important for developing the proper context necessary to have functional levels of empathy. There are two types of social media users: passive users and active users. Passive users scroll without engagement, where active users will actively like and comment on posts. Certain platforms promote various user styles as well. The social media platform TikTok, for example, is alleged to promote active user engagement with short-form video content and an easily accessible content creation system that has the capabilities to have broad outreach. Instagram, on the other hand, is an example of a social media platform that promotes passive user engagement. Most of the content takes the form of posts, which do not engage as well as highly visual short-form content, or an individual story, which is often the cause of insecurity amongst users who compare themselves with others. This insecurity can take the form of a lack of empathy for others. Furthermore, the only way an Instagram user can have a broad outreach outside of their followers is if they end up posting on Instagram Reels, their relatively new short-form video category. Meta, Instagram's parent company, however, fails to poorly monitor Reels, and a lot of people have been subject to cyberbullying and other forms of digital harassment there. The empathy gained from visual stimuli and context through the way one interacts with social media is important to acknowledge as well, as social media can be important in developing our empathetic ability. It just depends on how it is utilized. If, for example, one were to post on TikTok educational short form video content, while that may be detrimental to things like our youth's attention spans, it would be effective in the same sense that an educational show being broadcasted on PBS would be. This is why the context through which social media is promoted and interacted with is incredibly important. Social media has also been seen to possibly benefit emotional levels in various other ways. Affective empathy, again otherwise known as emotional empathy, has been seen to increase in many cases. In that study, where they analyzed the near 1,000 Dutch adolescents, affective empathy levels were observed to have a positive correlation with time spent on social media, especially amongst girls. Quote, adolescents who more frequently use social media improved their ability to share and understand the feelings of others over time, is the defining sentence for the benefits this study found, and it does not seem to be limited here. Another study seems to challenge the idea of compassion fatigue, that if one is exposed to too many tragedies, then they themselves are unable to feel compassion for them, or at the very least, act upon those compassionate sympathies. While compassion fatigue has been researched in regards to healthcare professionals, it has been, somewhat carelessly, applied to media. It has only been researched in any substantial empirical way amongst journalists and news media, but it exists at a lesser extent and is likely to go away over time with a period of decreased exposure. This should not apply to social media, as it is something once again different, and it hasn't yet had any sort of substantial quantitative study conducted. Overall, social media being a modern creation is something that we as a society are just starting to fully comprehend. There are countless studies conducted every year on the psychological effects it has on people. The benefits, the detriments, and every other mental impact it can have on people is under constant scrutiny, not just from academics, but those whose job it is to market and profit off of social media to the best of their ability. One of the most important aspects of our relationship with social media is our empathetic capabilities. We need to be able to conduct ourselves with respect towards others, and an understanding that just because we do not have the entire context to an individual's lives, that we are still capable of being empathetic, or at the very least, capable of understanding our shortcomings in that pursuit of common respect and understanding. Social media has many detriments. It creates a shield between us and our fellow humans, making a real connection hard, and creating this idea that we do not need to have a filter and respect for others. However, it also can promote empathy through the creation and proper usage of content on social media and the platforms themselves. So, how does social media relate to and change our empathetic capacities? Well, it's a complicated answer, and one that we're still trying to figure out every day. However, it is on us as social media users to continue to treat others with respect and to always keep in mind that everybody deserves some empathy.